I'm Will Downing. On January the 11th, 2023, I received a phone call from my ex-wife, who lived out on the West Coast. I live on the East, asking me if I had talked to our daughter, Erin Siobhan. I told her I hadn't talked to her in about 3 or 4 days. My daughter was known to go off the radar every once in a while, and you wouldn't hear from her. But it was cool. We were used to it. But this time it was a little different. When I was on the phone with her, I kept hearing commotion in the background. It's a lot of people. I said, well, who's there? He said, well, I'm at her house right now. I said, I'm with her friend, and I'm also with the police. I said, well, why? He said, she normally calls her friend every day, and she had not spoken to him in quite a few days, and they were concerned, so they were doing a wellness check. They tried to get into the front door of her house, couldn't get in, went to the back door, busted down the door, and then they found my daughter, unconscious, not moving, checked her, dead. It's the phone call you never want to receive, saying that your child has passed on. You should never bury your child should bury you, so it's one of those type of things that you think about. But my child had suffered from, she was bipolar, depression, some bits of schizophrenia, tried everything that we could to help her in every way, but I guess the world became too much for her. So for those of you who are suffering from anything like that, please don't hesitate to get professional help, all right? I wrote a song to commemorate her life in celebration. So the name of the song is Till We Meet Again. And if this song relates to you in some sort of way, there'll be a message at the very end that you could call and maybe get the help that you need, or for someone that you know. God bless you. Once again, the name of the song is Till We Meet Again. It's me, Will Downing. Enjoy.
I wish you could tell me what the hell was on your mind. When I last talked with you, it seemed like you were doing fine. You were not alone, 'cause someone was watching over you. Till we meet again, till we meet again, dealing with the ups and downs of this life merry-go-round. You were much too young to be taking things so seriously. I know that you're safe, 'cause heaven's watching over you until we meet again, till we meet again, ooh, till we meet again, till we meet again. You ascended, but the love I have for you is cemented right here in my heart, in my heart.
I'd like to call and say Happy New Year. Hope you have a wonderful, prosperous New Year. Woo-hoo. All right, love you. Bye.
Just like a rocket ship on love, you ascended, yeah. not for you.
Good evening, everyone. Slightly different start to the show. And the reason for this start for the show is because we're going to be focusing on well-being, challenges that our community has in dealing with our well-being, our mental health, and the support that we give one another. We have a great guest panelist on the show, and we all are experts. All of us, the panelists, you viewers, we're all experts in this because we're all impacted and affected, and our well-being is always being challenged and compromised on an everyday basis, whether it be work, home, relationship, children, our parents getting older, loss of jobs, loss of lives, divorces, bereavements, dealing with friends, family, loved ones that have terminal illnesses or other illnesses and addictions. We all have been in that situation, and we all are in those situations to some greater or lesser extent. We have our guest speaker today. That's Juney Muhammad. Juney Muhammad is a healthcare professional in mental health, and she will be talking about it. We'll be having lots of conversations, and you listeners are invited to leave comments, and we will respond to it accordingly. And anybody that knows myself can send a message, email, Magnet Radio. We'll leave the details with you towards the end. Welcome, DJ Boozadelic. DJ Boozadelic. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm good. I'm even better seeing all of you. DJ One, welcome.
Hello. How is everybody?
Hello. And our guest panelists, and also our fellow Magnet-Radio sister, Juney Muhammad, aka Empress Gem, but she's wearing a Juney Muhammad hat on today. Welcome, Juney.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, we
I
can
can
hear you.
hear you perfectly.
Yes. Greetings. So happy to be here. Good to see you all.
And we
Greetings. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. We started the show because it really touched my heart, and I love the song. I love the artist, and my heart just goes out to him each and every time. It's the 1 year anniversary since the passing of his daughter, the 11th of January. My prayers, my thoughts, my love goes out to him and his family, and his daughter Siobhan, who passed to our pearly gates last year, the 11th of January. And I cannot even imagine. There's many people that have gone through this with their children, and I cannot even imagine the pain that they go through. Your child, you know, there's many people that you grieve about, but your child and your parents, I can imagine those are amongst other people, because I'm not going to belittle it or this, in any shape or form, but your children and your parents, it hits a nerve like none other. Juney.
Oh, I mean, what I will say is I don't think people realize how prevalent suicide is in our community. I don't think they realize that all of us know somebody now who is not just having suicidal thoughts or going through suicidal ideation. They've actually attempted to take their lives or completed suicide in the police stations, very popular place, in hospitals, in prisons. And for a lot of parents, when you talked about having to bury your child, people don't realize a lot of the time the children or their spouses are taking their lives in the very home in ways that create so much trauma, people can't even live at that home anymore. And I have met so many people who said they can't get over it. They can't get over it. And they can't settle. And they want us to talk about this because is this a part of our conversation in our homes today? And so I'm pleased that we're having the conversation tonight, and those who can listen, I really thank you, because how much do we really understand about suicide? Do we know how many people tried to access services within the year following their death? Over 30% of people actually try to seek help, but you and I know it's very difficult to access services. It's difficult to express what you're going through when you've got to a point where, is anybody really listening? Is anybody really taking notice? We're all so busy, and I love the title of the show, Life Challenges. We're so busy, everything's hectic. We miss a lot of information and signals and early warning signs.
Oh, that is the key thing, the early warning signs, because there's so many early warning signs. And plus, I want us all to, I just want to put it out there. We're not apportioning any blame to anybody. We're just discussing it. We're just putting it out there so people can have food for thought and they can access and, do whatever they feel they need to do that relates to them. We're just discussing it. I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm not a doctor. It's just my opinion based on my own experiences of things and what I've seen and people I've spoken to, so it's just personal opinions.
Also experience, because our lived experience informs what we understand. When you've been around it, you see it and you feel that sense of shock or devastation, because suicide doesn't just happen to that individual. It happens to their loved ones and the communities and groups they're a part of. And so that is why we need to talk about it. It doesn't need to be always a celebrity.
Exactly.
Many of us in our families, I'm yet to be, a world-class celebrity. But, because often people take notice because they're alarmed that somebody who has that status, who has that friendship group, who has a different lifestyle, these things tended to happen to people in very desperate situations. But the point that you made earlier that I think we can think about is a lot of people have addictions to gambling. They have addictions to so many different things, whether it's not just alcohol and drugs, but it is to medications, prescribed medications. And lots of people don't understand the impact of those types of medications on people's lives and the disappointment people feel when they're not getting the right balance of support.
Yeah. Yeah.
And addictions is one of the biggest things that is killing a lot of our lives. So it's when we're talking about suicide, you have to understand there's a spiritual death, something that is killing your soul, sucking the very life out of you, that you're at the bookie shop until it's shut. And what we call bookie shop in Britain is the gambling, the betting office.
Yeah. And you know what? And there is a stigma attached to that, because people will walk past those individuals that go in the betting shop or sitting outside or standing outside of it, and they frown on them. And I think we need to have more compassion, because it goes deeper than that. They frown on them and think, oh, they call, in the UK they say, oh, they're a waste man, they're whatless. There's another word, they're whatless, meaning they're a bum, but these are people, these are human beings that have lives, they've got family, they've gone through situations. We can't judge them, we cannot judge them. They've gone through things, and that has been their coping mechanism. It might not be the most positive coping mechanism, but that's what they have reached out for. Many of us have different types of coping mechanisms that come back to bite us. Some of us gamble. Some of us watch too much telly. Some of us sleep too much. Some of us become promiscuous. Some of us, we become violent. Some of us sleep. Some of us eat too much. Some of us eat too little. Some, some of us don't take care of ourselves anymore. We let ourselves go. That handsome man, it becomes a shadow of his former self. That beautiful glowing woman, she's just a little fragment of her former self. There's all different ways that what people do, that where they, and some people shop, they become shopaholics, alcoholics. And all of these things are all damaging. So just because you're not at the betting shop, you may still have a vice. You may still have a vice. You may be the promiscuous one, the undercover promiscuous one. Oh yeah, I'm talking to many people out there. Undercover, you're hiding it away, and nobody knows about it. But yet you're judging somebody else. You're the one that goes home shouting at your children and your husband or your wife, making their life a misery. Do you think that's okay? It's not okay. It's damaging. You're affecting somebody else's life and their well-being and their mental health. I see you laughing, Juney, and I see some eyebrows going up. I can't hear.
I don't think we talk enough about the triggers of what triggers these things in our community, like what started it, what got us to the point of. I don't think we talk enough about those things. I know we talk about the effects and what the red flags are, but I
Yeah.
don't think we talk enough about what were the triggers that started the whole process in motion.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because when it comes to suicide as a result, the end point for that person, lots of times they themselves don't know what triggered it. often we may have experienced a life event that we didn't know that created trauma. That trauma could have been created just being born. It could be so many different things, from what happened to you in your childhood, how you think and feel about yourself. And one of the biggest crises that we have is around our identity, our sense of self, our confidence, our self-worth, our value, and the challenge of having social mobility and personal social capital. We feel really disappointed when we're not getting through and we're going around a cycle. And those barriers that we face, and the, you know, the profiling of us and all the expectations of us. And so there's so many things. So people always want to go for, you know, it's about the abuse, it's all these things. It's complex. It's never just one thing. There are multi factors why these things are caused. But I think one of the greatest things that you're bringing up now to talk about this is, how much of our lives are we settled? Are we feeling secure? Because one of the biggest damaging factors is not to feel secure or to belong. And they may seem subtle things, but they're quite difficult to negotiate when you haven't been socialized how to navigate your environment.
And
I
that's
know
really
Rosa didn't want to welcome in there. Sorry.
no, and that's really important, because there's layers to it, and there's branches that branches out of it as well. So and then it becomes even more complex. And then, you know, our brain is full of wires and chemicals. And so, as we go through all of these experiences and things that are happening, our brain is adjusting and it's rewiring, and it becomes the norm. Do you see? The dysfunction becomes a normality. So you could get a family that has gone through a particular journey. And it happens with a lot of families. They go through a particular journey. They're actually dysfunctional, but they think they're normal.
But
Yeah.
you can also have bereavement. The last personal suicide that we experienced was, the family were normal, were a normal family. And this young man is very educated and helped his sister, was a part of the family. And they missed the signs. They missed the signs. So I think the question that you raised earlier was around, these triggers come from very deep places for that individual.
Yes,
One size doesn't fit all.
it doesn't.
And this is the point, I think, that hounds a lot of families as they think about, how did we miss this? You know, what was happening? And they spend the rest of the time asking those very questions that you've just raised. What triggered it? And so that becomes quite challenging to answer people. But I know one big thing that we miss is bereavement. This young man had lost his dad. His dad had passed away suddenly one Christmas.
That's a big impact.
And I don't know what's been explored around, was that a trauma point for him?
And how well supported was he whilst the other family members were going through their grief? Because everybody's protecting and trying to strengthen their self, that they forget that they're part of a f- a family, unity, a family, and somebody else is really suffering because they're just trying to cope with their suffering. And what I'm trying to say, that as much as we all go through our personal difficulties and journeys and grieving process, we still have to try and be mindful with the people around us as well, because it's a double-edged sword. It affects us. So we can't just keep on looking within. We have to, we have to work together and make sure everybody is okay, as well as ourselves being okay. And
Yeah.
some individuals, they find it very hard to do that, due to whatever reasons, whatever factors. Not everybody has the same level of emotional intelligence and coping mechanism. It's just all self, and they forget there's others until things get really bad with the others, and then it actually makes them become even worse. So if you give a little and be mindful of others, that's why I think spirituality or religion, you know, um, is useful for some people. Because it can help give them that caring side if they tap into that. That's just my personal view. These things can help them, so they're not just thinking about themselves. Because it's not all about yourself. We got to think about other people as well, especially the people we're living with and around us.
But I think it's the socialization of how do we enable each other to have the conversations we want to have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
carry on, Bozadeli.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say that a lot of times I think, especially within our community, it's we don't necessarily know how to articulate our feelings, and then we've kind of been shunned upon if we seek outside help. Black folks don't do that. I mean, I used to be one of those people that believe that, and it wasn't until I actually found a therapist that looked like me, that could relate to me, that I actually said, hey, this isn't all that bad. And so as long as we're holding on to that stuff inside, I mean, it just stays bottled up, and we have no way of really releasing it. And I was thinking about the young man, you said his father died. I remember what an impact that had on me. When my father, he got sick like right in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then he was dead within about less than a year. And I just think if I hadn't had that support system around me, my mom, she was a minister in the church, so she did counseling around that. She's the strongest person I ever saw. I mean, she buried her mother, her father, her brothers, her sisters, and her husband. And it's just like, but the average person doesn't have somebody with that kind of strength. And then if it's like not really, something that you culturally do, I
I
could just
think,
see where we hold on to that.
yeah, but I think this. I mean, I don't want to generalize about culture. I think different families have got different ways of having those conversations and run
Mhm.
different family structures. I just think that it's always felt quite taboo. And when it came to suicide, because a lot of our families have religious backgrounds, it was frowned upon. It was
Yeah.
seen as a transgression or an abomination. So it wasn't something that people actually spoke about. And we do need to remember that suicide in itself was seen as a crime.
Yes.
So they used to say you committed suicide
Yeah.
up
Yes.
until 1962. But up for the last 50 years, it's taken them to adjust the act of law to say that we can't take other people's lives, but it's no longer a crime to take your own life. So it's where we got into this assisted suicide
Oh yeah, Dr. Gavorkian.
global.
Yeah.
Yes. So because they had to clarify that in law in some countries, especially in Europe, that you can't just help somebody to die, they then had to then adjust the wording and make sure that they push through that you now use the term you completed suicide. Because remember now, you couldn't get any insurance. You weren't buried in a grave in a churchyard. It was an
Right.
unmarked grave. Yeah. And so it put even more pressure and shame on families because they can't get no insurance for you. So nobody wanted that as registered death on the certificate.
Uh-huh.
So there's loads of things involved, and it's still till today an issue about what is actually put on the death certificate. So even if I die this year, that might not be registered on the certificate what I did or died from until the following year when it involves a suspicion of suicide, because they have to prove it in a court of law. Otherwise, it's death by misadventure. And you will hear lots of people have died by death of by misadventure because they couldn't prove that it was suicide.
Wow.
So what you're saying is very, very profound, but we do need to bring some facts in here where there's a lot of stigma and discrimination.
One thing that is diminishing and less of is because of geographical locations, people, and just distractions in life, and people would say they're busy. Is just simple things, simple family time, quality family time. And I'm a true believer, if you meet up, let's say every week, all day, like on a Sunday or a Saturday, you do something, it's an opportunity to talk, it's an opportunity to connect, it's an opportunity to build trust, to mend bridges if you've had a little fallout before it escalates and goes into something bigger, snowball effect. It's a great opportunity just to feel loved and to talk and laugh and have a little argument if you have to. Just get it out your system. And I think things like that is healthy, but not enough of us is having that. That is dwindling away. Even the family that you have in your home, it's like how many of us sit round the table and have dinner as a family round the table at a particular time. Times are all scattered. Everybody's coming in different times, eating at different times. Some people eat in their bedroom. It's like, where's the table? Do you not have a table? Where is that family? This is time that you can talk about work, school, what's going on. Are you okay? This is a time where you can simply observe one another and pick up anything that's not quite right and address it quickly before it turns into something else. We're missing these things.
But you have to remember that when it comes to suicide, there is suicide that happens by accident because it may have started off as self-harm, but they've either cut themselves too deeply and they've ended up killing themselves. But you have to remember that people can plan to end their lives. They actually plan. They may start to give away their possessions. They may go and see people that they need to see. They may have all of a sudden got to do a job that they really wanted to do, and they're showing happiness. And then next minute, they're not here anymore. And it's a bit like, you know, I don't know if any of you have experienced people going through the journey of cancer. They can appear like they've got really good recovery and look really well and bright and vibrant. And then all of a sudden, there's somebody says they've passed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this little part of it, but it's a really important part to actually make time to be near people when they're really at a low ebb and they may have withdrawn. And it's those days that you said, oh, I didn't see them for a few days, as Will Downing talked about. It's just a few days. And they've then gone to find them. They've gone. They're not here anymore. They've transitioned. And I think, so it is complex, and it isn't about blame, and it's not all the same, and it's not for the same reasons. But it's a way people now, I mean, people, you know, suicide is an age-old way, a method of ending your life that affects people deeply. And people say people are selfish who could end their life like that. They say that they're selfish, how
I've
they're
heard
wicked,
that.
and they try to make them feel guilty, how you can leave your children, how you can leave your husband, how you know. And the worst thing you can do is make people feel guilty about who they're going to leave behind, as opposed to, how do I have this conversation with you?
Exactly.
How do I keep you in a conversation that might be the conversation that turns it around,
Mm-hmm.
that
But
gives you some hope?
I think it's hard to have certain conversations with certain people when they're the abusers. They're the ones that are causing the people to feel a certain way about who they are and where they are in life. And I think that we're kind of glazing over it by just saying that we can just talk to them. A lot of people, like Buzadella said, really needs that help. Really need that help, and we need to. In our community, I think that it's very hard for us to realize that therapy is a way. But before we even go that route, there are not that many therapists or people in the mental health field that can help us that are black. And a lot of people, it's hard to go to somebody of some other culture to talk about what I'm going through as a black person or going through at home in a black home when they can't relate at all. And so that piles on the the heaviness of depression and the heaviness of what they're going through because a lot of times the parents haven't prepared their children for real life. You know, we grew up a certain way, and we want our kids not to grow up that way because we felt like in our time, that our parents, you know, they were rough on us. We're not going to do our kids like that. But at the same time, we haven't prepared our children for the realities of life, and they get out there in those realities, and now they can't handle themselves. But and in our households, in the black households, I'm just talking about black people. In black households, we're pushing our children out after a certain age, and they might not really be able to leave, really prepared to leave the nest at that time. But we're pushing them out at a certain age and saying, go ahead and live your life. Get out there and live your life. And it's fun for a minute until the realities of life hit.
I think that's a really critical point about having therapists that look like us, talking therapies. And that's why I created something called front room therapy, because that's the most comfortable place that we feel to talk. And so I've called it front room therapy. However, one of the points that you're making is, if we ourselves haven't had a chance to unpack what's gone on for us, how do we then do it differently to prepare our children? I think a lot of parents are still trying to navigate themselves being adults and keeping the roofs over their own heads, much less how they teach and support and nurture their own children and spouses. Because you have to remember, suicide is not just happening to children.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide is happening to big people. Yeah. The most common age for suicide is from 47 to 55,
Yeah.
but it's going right up to 90. Can you imagine? In the UK right now, we have a very high suicidal rate at the age of 90, where men are 3 times more likely to take their lives than women. So women are taking their lives, and women are being using methods that are very brutal. Like, women used to take, like overdose and tablets. Yeah. But they're actually hanging themselves, and other methods that are
Oh,
like very blunt, very final methodology. So we need to think about what, and Adessa was talking about the level of pain people are in. And there's a confusion. How do I do this? And I think this is a bigger community conversation to support all families at different levels to negotiate this. And you're right about pushing them out. That's because the society just wants you and your children to be independent and not ask for help. But actually, we do need the help to have these conversations. We do need the help to nurture and keep our children in the home. But we, most of all, how do we seek help? How do we trust people?
It's very difficult. We as a community, we find we have trust issues. A lot of in our community, we have real trust issues, and some of it is very valid, because sometimes you do try to share something because you're vulnerable. You just want, we all need help, and then the person, because they're not well equipped, or they just don't care about you in that way as you thought they did, they throw it right back in your face, or do something, or tell a whole load of people, then it becomes the world's news. What was I going to say? Yeah, it's so complex. It's just this thing is just so complex, Junie and everyone. There's a real stigma. There's a real, you know, all this. It's everything into one. Oh, you're strong, especially when this strong black woman. You're a strong black woman. I really hate. I'm going to use that word. I'm going to use it really strongly. I hate it with a vengeance when somebody tells me, Adessa, you're a strong black woman. I hate it. Don't tell me I'm a strong black woman. I hate it. You don't say that to all the other nationalities. Very rare do you say. Why do you always have to say it to the black women? Yeah. What? Because we must carry this every load and responsibility. What it actually does, you see, when people tell you that, it negates responsibility on their side to just reach out.
But the impact of that type of pressure and expectation, one of the things that you're talking about, I suppose it's one of the biggest factors and biggest impact on the black women, that they are actually going into mental health institutions on short sections they call it a section 2 here in the UK. And that is, they keep them up to 28 days, and they keep them long enough to treat them. But those children may be left unattended,
Exactly.
unsupported.
Exactly.
And so as she breaks down, we use the term, she has a nervous breakdown, she has a moment, whatever, she has a wobble, yeah, and she is taken into the system. There's then this cycle of having to go to the system, because what Bozadelic raised earlier is, do we have that ability and confidence to talk about how we're really feeling and what's happening to us? Who actually listens? Who cares? What's available? Yeah, who cares? Yeah, people just expect you to cope. Yeah, and you're the woman and you have the children, so the state will more look after you. And actually, the women in the 21st century are very different than our parents' generation and their generation. Yes, many are holding the fort and they get their children through, and they don't even have time for the nervous breakdown. They have to live through the nervous breakdown. They have the breakdown when the children leave home.
Yeah.
But
And we need
it manifests through their health. They still got
absolutely.
mental health issues because, let's just be real, they become so miserable, some of our black women. No, I'm just gonna be frank. Some of our black women, and I'm not attacking them, and I'm not apportioning blame or anything. It just is what it is. Some of our black women are really miserable. They're really nosy. They really gossip a lot. They really, don't take any constructive criticism very well. They'll attack you, bite. Their tongue is very sharp. They get offended and irritable very quickly. It's like you're stepping on, eggshells. You have to be very careful. And I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of why or what and what. I'm just putting it out there, and because they carry a lot, because this is what they do to the men. Men have to be strong. Men have to be financially stable, right? And if they are not, there's certain things they're going to do to you. Put you in the mental institution long term, not short term as you're talking about, 28 days, long term. Imagine the impact that has on that man and on his family and children, and also any little deviation from the so-called law, they chuck them in the cell. Again, the psychological, the emotional impact and trauma that has on that man within himself, and the knock-on effects and trauma that it has on his family, his children as well, because he may have sons or daughters, and equally that trauma spills over on your son or daughter. Imagine your son and daughter knowing that dad's in prison,
Yeah.
dad's in a mental institution.
Yeah. Yeah.
That in itself is a big thing to carry.
It's psychological warfare.
Yeah.
It's part of the plan and has been part of the plan ever since that they emancipated them.
Yeah, and it's done deliberately. Whereas other cultures, they get more community help. They get more help with what was the root causes. Has he lost his job? Has he got an addiction? Let's deal with that. Let's try and put him on an employment program. Let's try and get him housing. He may be just freshly divorced, or the woman's kicked him out for whatever reason. For whatever reason, it happens, and many men have gone through it.
Yeah, well, you
And
see
that's
that.
a
I
big
mean,
blow.
it's prevalent in the media today. Just look at the way they portray, like, say, the mass shooter. the first thing they want to talk about, if he doesn't look like one of us, is, oh, well, he has some mental health issues.
Right.
You know, and it's like, I mean, even the case where the young man went in there and shot up like 9 people at that church, and then they took his ass to Burger King. I mean, what kind of
Right.
and made sure he had water.
But
So
this is the
But
critical thing
but
you're
what,
raising.
before you say that, doctor, but look how long it took them to call uh, the epidemic of using drugs like crack and opioids. Look how long it took them to classify that a um, as a mental health issue, as opposed to drug addiction and all this other stuff. Or they didn't classify it as an epidemic until it became a part of the other cultures. When
that's
it was
right.
a
It
part of the
spilled
black
over
culture,
in their cultures too much.
right? When it was a part of the black culture, it was no big deal. It was they should just come off of it, and they should you know just stop doing drugs. But now, we had that big. I mean, before then, we had that big just say no to drugs thing. But now, all of a sudden, it's they need help. They need therapy. They need this. They got a lot of help that they didn't give our community when the opioids and the cocaine and the crack was in our in our neighborhoods, in our environment. But now all of a sudden, now that it's in their environment, in their neighborhoods, they there's mental health issues, there's treatment centers and everything going around helping them come off of those things. And I think that's a lot of what um, affects our mental, because we're not only we in our lifetime we grew up in that area, so we knew people that was on drugs, we knew people that went through it, and we looked down on them, but at the same time we felt sorry for them, but we didn't get them help.
Right.
And I think that is the biggest issue. I mean, there is very little help here um, to get addiction help, to get a lot of our young people to do a detox who are exposed to cannabis. Cannabis here, Sir Robin Murray from the Institute of Psychiatry wrote a paper. And what happened was exactly what you're saying. When they found that more white young people were also being affected by this exposure to the need to use cannabis in that way, and they were getting something called cannabis psychosis. Yeah. And the psychiatrists here have said that if they could get the young people off of the cannabis, they could remove 2/3 of the people off their wards.
Hmm.
That's profound.
Yeah.
But there's still not enough help. They end up going into detention centers and into prisons, and very little opportunity for any detox or treatment. So addiction is normally, you get addiction services when you become a part of the system. So one of the issues that you've raised very profoundly is, how do we not go there in the first place? How do we erect that barrier to not go there in the first place? And we're not having those conversations either.
No.
I
And
think we need to have more of those conversations. We need preventative measures in the community, preventative measures in the home, and with individuals to in all different areas, and how to conduct yourself as a parent, as a mother, as a father, as a woman, as a man, dealing with young children, as a family unit with your teenage children. There can be many things that can help equip us and support us. And the people rolling out these programs, they need to look like us. They really need to look like us to build the trust so we can get the attendees. Yeah, and we can get the people rolling onto these programs. They need to look like us. And I'm going to say, not only look like us, they need to feel like us. They need to have the same heartbeat as us, because there's many that look like us, but they're not one of us.
not all,
That's
not all
called
skin folks are
reframing, isn't
kin
it?
folk.
Hmm?
And that is so important, especially where, you know, they're making the, you know, education all about the money.
But
Yeah.
they don't train them to be culturally competent. And that point that you're making is they have this style of training. This is the frameworks they are to use and to deliver by. And until those individuals as professionals take on board their culture and make it relatable and resonate with the people in front of them, then they don't access that. And it depends on also where they work, because you have to remember there are people who want to have people that look and sound like us, but there's people who have developed such a mistrust that anything outside of what they're given from mainstream provision, they don't trust it and they don't want it. So there's this confusion. But what we're talking about is looking at solutions for our community.
Yes.
And so it is about people who can identify with our thinking, with our lifestyles, with our fear, with those hidden traumas and secrets we don't know. There's people I know that have taken their lives because they couldn't get back their children. Their children got taken. Their families abused them when they were living with a mental illness. Their families abused them. And when they died, that church was packed beyond the door. But where were they when they were
When they
living?
were alive. I say that all the time. Don't be spending your 10,000, 20,000 pounds or dollars when the person has gone to the other side. Spend it while they're living. Go and see them while they're living. Go and give them flowers and roses while they're living. I'm gonna share something with all of you. Just before Christmas, I was at home working, and I got a telephone call from my sister saying, "You got to come to the hospital now, Mum." I've never had that telephone call before. I've had telephone calls saying Mum's been unwell, Mum's ill, Mum's in hospital, you know, fine. But I've never had a telephone call saying, "Think you better come to the hospital now." And the sound of her voice, I was like, oh my goodness, it's over. I better get down there quickly. Called my son to come quickly from school, told the school were great. They didn't even go into the details. They could hear it in my voice. My son needs to come home ASP. It's a family matter. He came home ASP. When he came home, we went straight to the hospital. It was 50-50. 50-50. Obviously, before I logged out of work, I told my line manager, I said, I've got to go. I literally just came out of a meeting. I said, I said, and the joke is when we have meetings, they do like, how are you feeling today? You know, and give a score from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, how you're feeling. So, and I was like, I'm okay, I'm cool. Yeah, looking forward to Christmas, blah, 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 blah. As soon as that meeting finished, that's when my sister called me. As soon as I clicked end, my mobile phone rang and my sister. And so I had to call my line manager and say, I gotta go. I gotta go. My sister's just, I don't know what's happening, but it sounds really serious. And I'm not even gonna question my sister. I'm not questioning her. I'm going. I'm just going. She said, fine. I said, okay, don't worry. Just pack away. It's your mom. She was great. Okay. That was on the Thursday. Went to the hospital. Mum was not in a good shape at all, at all. It was like 50-50. Not in a good shape. Terrible. Went there again on the Friday. She looked way better. You know, it was like a miracle. God is wonderful. That's all I can say. Our Creator is wonderful, absolutely beautiful. It creates miracles. Don't know what they gave her, but phew, they gave her something that really helped a lot. The Saturday morning, I get a knock on the door. I wasn't in a good mood, tired as well, mentally and physically drained. Saturday morning, get a knock, 7 o'clock in the morning, because I still did my shows. Yeah, still did my shows. So still went bed late. And I said, who's knocking on my door at 7 o'clock in the morning? I'm not opening the door. I looked through the peephole to see who it might be. I couldn't see anybody through the window or peephole. I was thinking, who's that? It's like the person just disappeared. I couldn't even get to see in time. Well, I thought I'll leave it a little bit. After a while, I opened the door. I thought, I wonder if they left anything there. What's going on? Open the door. There was a package on the floor. And it was a card. It was a bunch of flowers and chocolate from work. Do you know how much that helped just brighten my day? And I'm not saying that everybody must give roses or flowers or whatever, but I'm just talking about the gesture of things, just being kind, just being there for people. Yeah. Especially when you know they're going through a rough time, being understanding. And even if you don't know they're going through a rough time, just be nice, full stop, because you don't know what they're going through. The listeners didn't know what I was going through, and I'm not going to do that. I still did my show. The show must go on. Yeah, wonderful. And that really just gave me, that alone just boosted me and gave me a big encouragement. You know, it's like, wow, you know, these people, they're not family, you know. I get on well with them, yeah. And I'm like, that was really nice. And they had really kind words to put in the card. So it's these things that we've got to, you know, because easily I know individuals that they'd be like, oh, your mum's not well. Oh, well, my mum's dead. Or, your mum's not well. Oh, well, my mum's not well either. You know, and it's like, wow, you know, do you know what I mean? You're going through a hard time, and you may know the other person's going through a hard time, but you don't need to come across like that. It's not helping nobody. It's not helping you. And the best way, one of the best ways, and professionals have said that, you can back me up, Juney, of dealing with your well-being and helping improve your mental health is to give to others, to be kind to others. And it helps make you feel better too.
It's a fact. They did scientific evidence that people who have the spirit to give, what they get back from giving helps them also to keep well. And they've done some studies. Often the people who give are the people who need the most. Absolute need the most. So people feel like people give, oh, they can afford to give. Often that isn't the case. They're often the most needy. But what they get when they're in the spirit of giving and actually giving is healing for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, I just wished our community would lessen some of the blame factor, would lessen some of the self-pitying that they go through. I'm not diminishing anything that they've gone through or what they're going through, not in any shape or form. But, you know, we all have a responsibility for ourselves, and we have a responsibility amongst the community that we live in, the people we interact with, the people that we live with. We can't be just going around with this hurt, and just being this tumbleweed of something that people are scared to approach because they're scared that it's going to erupt.
But I really strongly feel that the help that we need in our communities it needs to be organized.
Yes.
It needs to be some organized help from people that other people respect. And that's why I do like when those who give back, you know, they go to the barbershops, they work with the young men, they work with the young women, they do those programs. And there are more programs our communities are doing to help themselves, that we don't lose our generation, we don't lose our men, that you're not too old to reconnect. And one thing my neighbor taught me as a black man in his 60s, that he gave himself the opportunity to still reconnect with his children and their mothers. He can't put right the past, but he did what he could in the present.
Of course.
And he gave them the opportunity, whether they accept him or not. And that for me was a very powerful action. So he's not going around, just guilty of the past, but he took action.
Good.
To do something in the present. He took the chance. He took a risk to reconnect, and it served him well. And I was proud to witness it. I actually cried when I witnessed it because I was invited to that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Moment. And I want to share that, whether you're the man or the woman. Every day you have a new opportunity to do what you need to do to live the life you want to live and put right some of those hurts. So trauma is something we're going to have to unpack. But you need support to unpack it, is what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
We need some support. It's not about being quotologists, yes. And yes, by design, we've been set to be like crabs in a bowl. But that is not the solution, to stay there. When we know that, then what are we going to do? And so we're in the what are we going to do phase. So some people are going to nurture some of our community that are incarcerated in our prisons. They are going to visit people who are in our mental institutions. They are putting on programs and giving a space for a young person to develop themselves. We are more taking young people back into our homes. So yes, in hindsight, some of our actions were ignorant. They were ignorant because we're so frustrated and under pressure. And there's an actual project called Under Pressure. And I love it because it says it. People are under pressure, even though they can't articulate it. They are under pressure. They're having diabetes, hypertension, or high blood pressure, all kind of stomach disorders Crohn's disease and all of these disorders. They're having inflammation in the brain. They're having the schizophrenia, the bipolar, the dementia. They're having the prostate cancer, the ovarian cancers and cysts and brain tumors and all of these different things. So they're having physical manifestation.
Mhm.
That's what we're talking about.
It is, yeah.
A
Yes.
physical manifestation of the deterioration of the body.
Mm.
So we'll talk about some of the physical things, but we're not talking about what's going on with the health of our minds. And just as the epididymis in the seed bag or the scrotum of the male, it becomes calcified. Yes, it becomes calcified. So does that happen in our brain? And so you start to get foggy brain. I can't think. I can't concentrate. I start to forget. And we're not realizing those are early warning signs of dementia.
Yes.
And we get them in your leg. You get it in your arm. You get it around your organs. But we're not bringing it together. What do you call it? Joining the dots.
Yeah.
Connecting. Yeah.
So once we start to join the dots, stop being this armchair politician. Let's go and organize and do what we need to do. Because all of you identified with every one of those issues. What's the other one? Fibromyalgia. Pain. And when you get anxious, the pain in your body is excruciating.
Yeah.
And many people who suffer with it also suffered with childhood abuse. Some of the things we witnessed and saw, we shouldn't have witnessed and saw or gone through.
That's
Even
a key point.
some of the young men who have saw daddy left and daddy didn't come back, and they always wanted to have this father. I've seen young men abuse their mothers and blame them that you're why my daddy's not here. And they're 18 months and now they're nearly 30 years old. And those young men are not well. And I think one of the powerful things that I can share with you is because I've been in the community, in the youth centers or the women's groups or the Black specific centers, you start to see people in those different spaces over that period of time. And that type of evidence to show you how young it starts with things that people don't realize affected that child.
There's so many, and adults have a really bad habit, arguing in front of the children. That's trauma in itself. Arguing on the phone, they think, the child's in another room, I'm just on the phone. That's trauma again. Arguing with all kinds of people, chatting, gossiping. These are all triggers. These are all traumas on children in the home. These things, first of all, it shouldn't be done at all, because it's not good for your well-being and the individual's well-being. Then to do it in sight or in any vicinity, close proximity in whether you're in a different room is irrelevant, because children have ears. Children are not stupid. They hear everything.
But children are also affected, though,
everything.
Adassa, by a lot of us are bullied at work.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things that people don't talk about. The experience of their parents or a guardian who's had to go out to work to keep that household, what they go through. Bullying
It's bad.
is one of the most traumatizing things. So by the time the adult gets in, what abuse they endured in that workplace, the way they were spoke down to, the way they had their, as they said, the elbow or the knee in their neck daily, assaulted. looked over, circumvented. They had to train the people to be over them and get the least of the wages. They had the threats. Yeah. So they were undermined consistently, and internally they were trying to not be broken. But a lot of the people you're speaking to, they're broken.
They're broken.
They're broken inside, but they're putting on a face on the outside to still try and hold up their head. You know, they have the saying, hold up your head, because we're not allowed to show anything. And so what we talked about this evening is very complex. And once we begin to unpack some of these issues, that we can support ourselves better. And your immediate units, and Bozadelic talked about, there are people who, or is it not Bozadelic, but Duane talked about, sometimes you don't have people to talk to because they're the very abusers that cause you to be unwell, to cause you to not like yourself, who never value you and put you down. And so sometimes your own family can be that trigger. But we have to have some perspective here that many of us actually are doing as well as we can. And we do come from humble and good families. But we are, as a community, under environmental pressures. We're experiencing environmental racism. They call it structural racism. But that's affecting your economy, what you can bring in, how you live, how much time you got in your house. Do you need to do 2-3 jobs to keep decency in your home? Yes? So I think when we speak, we need to have some balance. Some balance. Some balance, because there's a lot of contributing factors why we're having these challenges. And that's why people want their children to do well, that they stand a better chance of making it. Those families who talk to their children and keep them near. My mum said, you could be bigger, sir. I can still correct you. And I still have to have manners and respect to my mum.
Yes.
She don't care how old you are. You still her child.
That's right. That's right.
And I think just beautiful things like what you spoke about earlier was keeping our children near to us as they journey through the life. Even mass murderers, their families go and look for them. Not us, because of the shame. We're not looking after. We're not going to look for nobody. And I know that's an extreme example.
But you've got to give all examples, because that's what happens. So that's the reality, what happens.
But there was a point, I just want to quickly say that Bozadelic, or I think it was how society responds to us as Black people. They are called, they respond to us, what they call it, risk averse. Anything we do is responded to very harshly with a particular lens. So when we commit any offense, it's shoot to kill. It's not shoot to maim or just handcuff you. I have to harm you because you are 10 times superhuman than anybody else. And I think that is a point that we do need to bring into our conversation around how we're profiled. What is the impact of being profiled and stopped every day? Even as a professional, we've got professional men on their way to work every day. They are stopped, and their white colleagues walk past them being stopped. How undignifying is that? So much less what our young people see what the parents see, because you have to remember, a lot of young parents can blame their children for being stopped.
Yes, they do. And it's really difficult because I've seen it with my eyes. I've experienced it. I've had somebody stop my son when he was younger, no reason whatsoever. We were at an event, and actually, he was performing at the event. So he was just with the band, with the performers, and you know when they're backstage and they're just like laughing, joking, and he went for a little walk around the vicinity, and he just got stopped, and everybody in the park was part of the event, part of the show, coming to watch the show. He got shot. So I'm just like, I saw what happened. I go up and I'm like, what are you stopping my son for? Oh, because he fits it. And fits what is the description? What is the description? It was very vague. I said, that could be anybody. Why did you have to pinpoint my son? My, s- what is that? Why do you have to pick? And he was only 13 at the time. Why are you harassing a 13-year-old boy who's part of the production? You can see because they all had a special T-shirt on, all the same T-shirt, part of the band. Why are you stopping? He's part of the production. What? Give me your name. Give me your color number. I want it now because I'm not accepting that in any shape or form.
So I this week I lost two friends. I should say last week I lost two friends um, because of mental health. So and him, he had a, I should say, he had a support group. I was part of that support group, and a couple of other guys were part of the support group. And when he was feeling down, basically he would, we would see something on Facebook or something like that, and we would call him. So this particular day, he said he deleted his Facebook page, and so I kind of called him, but he was already on the phone with two of the other guys, and so we all just got together and started talking. And come to find out, he was really feeling like depressed because of something he had already done, and but it all stemmed and and we it all stemmed from just him not being able to communicate. And I think we're put in positions. A lot of us are put in positions where we're not able to communicate with the people that need our help, but we don't have them. We don't have a place to turn them to either. And I think they suffer because now they go off on their own, and they suffer in their silence, and things happen. And like I was saying earlier, and Boozy was saying earlier, whereas the other people are treated differently. They're saying, "Oh, he has a mental health issue. We need to get him some help." Where, as for us, they're like, "Oh, you're supposed to be able to handle that. You know, you put that on your shoulders and carry that." But you know, as for and let's be biblical real quick too, because the woman is not meant to carry the weight the men carry. So when they ask for equal rights, they're asking for the same weight and the same things that men have to carry on them, and now the weight of the world is on their shoulders, and it's hard for them, and they don't understand why is it so hard. Well, this is something that men carry all the time, but now men don't have a place to come in. I'm not just talking about it goes across the board for everybody. But men don't have, when they come home, they don't have that place to sit down and talk with that person to say, I've had a real bad day, and somebody to soothe them and say, you know what, I got you. Because now the woman is coming home the same way. Like I've had a real bad day too, you know. And so now you got two people that's, you know, in the household that because they have real bad days just want to be left alone, and there's no communication there. And I think because people are allowed um, to wallow or to let's see, stay inside of their emotions, things things like that, like suicide and depression, happen more because we're allowed to stay inside of our feelings, where there's other outlets for the other cultures, for therapy, for mental health, for medicine to help them out, and things like that. And I think our conversation is important, but I think that there needs to be also a solution to what can we do to open the lines of communications in just at least uh, our communities, where there's places for, let's start with the children to go, because I think there's a higher uh, depression and suicide rate in children than there are in anybody else right now.
I think I like what you're saying, and I think everybody here, even on the platform, can facilitate some spaces where families can begin to start to have these conversations. Depression and anxiety often go together. We often may see the expression of anxiety, but not realizing that depression goes hand in hand with anxiety. The key point that you're raising here is, until we make our mental health and well-being a priority, as much as income generation, keeping a roof over our head, raising our children, that our mental well-being is critical. So having that conversation about our day and agreeing, you know what, when we come in, we need to touch base and ask each other, how are you? How was your day? But what the critical point you're raising is, if you're already full up and you're tired, how are we responding to giving each other the space to welcome each other, to say, hi, how are you? You know, that cup of tea is there, or the dinner is there, whatever it is. And you can have some downtime to just let it out, but feel reassured, and not less of a man and less of a woman. And this is going back to emotional intelligence. Yes, you're right about the children. The rate of suicide is higher in adults, but the rate of self-harm in young people is off the chain. The rate of depression, 1 in 5 children, is very similar to the rate in adults. Very similar. And that's alarming. And actually, mental illness, there is an epidemic where it's an open secret, where we've talked about all the different ways that we're seeing it, but it's not being addressed. And because of the stigma and discrimination, how do we go and seek help when we don't feel we're going to be heard? We don't feel that we've had any justice. We don't feel what you've got to offer can help us, because you don't understand us, you don't know us, and the tools you want to use are not for us. So when I'm invited, for example, to go to Caribbean or America to speak on these issues and to run workshops, that we can start to develop our confidence and abilities to have these conversations, but to act, to do something. Because that's what you're saying. We need solutions. But you have to believe that the solutions are in us right now. We have them, but it needs to be organized. You don't need a big top label. What you need is people who believe in their community and believe that we can do something to help ourselves. And once we can start there, right there in your neighborhood, there's loads of children that don't feel that they've got a home to go home to. They're looking at the fridge back, pure fridge back, nothing in the fridge. They're putting on the light, no light coming on. Or the house can look very pretty, but emotionally, the home is empty.
Yeah.
There
Junie?
are things right there on our doorsteps, and we can organize ourselves. We're a part of places that have these spaces where you can call people together and we can help each other. You're across the pond. That's not far. People come there to work daily. We can help each other make a difference. But you've got to come from a practical place that it's not about blame. But do you believe that we can help ourselves? Because you have got practitioners who want to work in a community way, but the community have to give them permission to extend their hat outside of their mainstream rules and regulations. You have to understand that, because the same people that said that they need help are the same people that try and get you into trouble to make you lose your profession.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah? So we can help you. So that's why I like my level of independence, because I can do that. And there are other people, other professionals who are willing to help their community. But we too need to come together and create those spaces, or create online presence. So how many of you have a reach that you would send an invitation to every home? How many of you on your radio messages or wherever you've got your audience would send them an invitation to have these conversations? Because this is about all of us, our children, our unborn babies, the amount of women mash up after having children, not getting proper care. Their children are dying disproportionately. Our young men are in prison disproportionately. They're on the psychiatric units disproportionately. And the list goes on. But we, right here, could go to work to make a difference and create that change that you're looking for, and join with the people in your communities that are doing something. Some of them are running food banks. Some of them are making sure the children have uniforms to go to school. Some of them are running projects for young people after school so they're less likely to be groomed. You've got them there, right there. Now, as I'm saying it to you, you're thinking, this project is happening, that is happening. It is happening, but are you identifying with it as a part of the solution? Because it takes all of us. It will take the village.
It does take the village, and it takes the village to spread the word, because some people, they don't know. They're so caught up in the rat race, they don't even hear about these things. It's not visible to them. Somebody would literally have to talk directly to them, show them leaflets, encourage them, because and they're in a whirlwind. They're just caught up all in it. They'd be like, I don't have the time. You've got to make time. You can make time. I'm gonna say some.
There's something called Ubuntu. I don't know how many of you have heard the term.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am because you are, and because you are, I am. So if I'm eating, I'm supposed to make sure you also eat.
Exactly.
And I think those basic principles are the principles and frameworks we need to use that allow us to reconnect with each other from a different place. So it's not about being just, I'm very political, but you're political and it's words. You're not doing nothing.
Yeah, rubbish. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people got that. I call them quotologists. They can
It's a
quote you
waste
from
of time.
every
Waste of time.
Yes, Queen Sister. And Ubuntu is actually I am because we are.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
And it's
I've been quiet, you know, and just kind of listening. You know, Adasa, you know, you were just mentioning as far as, you know, somebody saying, well, you have to make the time. And when you are in a mental funk, that is just not possible. It's hard. And again, when you are in a place where you don't feel like anybody can do anything, it's hard to believe that you know, there is help out there. I think the only thing for me that helped me was the fact that I had been in the medical field. If I wasn't in the medical field, I don't think I would have eventually gotten the help that I needed. So I had attempted suicide back in 2004. So, and you know, a lot of people would think, oh, well, you got it going on. You in the military, you know, you're working in the medical field, you're helping people, but it doesn't discriminate. And I was going through a lot at the time, being young, and I had just allowed it to get to me. I mean, I even remember way before that, I used to tell patients, life's not that bad. You need to get over it. And boy, did the karma come around on me. I mean, not being able to just, I was able to function to go to work, but it was hard to do just daily things, just washing and didn't want to eat, and you know, the shades being down. And the day that I attempted suicide, I did it and went to work and fell out at work. So they thought I had dropped dead at work. And so, you know, I got taken to the hospital. I was admitted, and I was, you know, in a facility for about 17 days. And that's when they did cognitive behavioral therapy for me. And I think that was one of the biggest. I mean, I didn't want to sing. I was just like, you know, I don't know how God would even do this to me. You know, I grew up going to church and you would just let all these things happen to me. I said, you know, if Jesus could come down on my block, I would square up with him right then and there. It was just not a good place. And so being in this facility, I had they started me on med because I was on a couple different things, but it just wasn't working for me. Finally got medication that worked for me. And I'll never forget, like, I didn't want to sing anymore. And I remember some of the other patients, because we had to do these sessions daily. We had to meet as a group. And that was a part of, if you want to get out, you got to, you know, you got to do these sessions. You got to talk. And I just did not want to sing. And I remember it was one lady in particular, she would, can you sing something? And I'm like, man, get out my face. But I realized that there was, again, patients there that were way worse off than me, that had other issues that I couldn't even fathom. And again, I was a young girl at 23, 24 at the time. And I mean, there was even a lot of older patients. And as I was getting through the therapy, I even remember I had to get my mother moved from security, because when she came to visit me, I told her she was part of the problem. And she didn't want to hear it. And so she was about to jump on me. And so I said, security, get her out of here. So that really pissed her off, because she had issues of her own that she had to deal with. And when I got out, I said that, you know, it wasn't my time, you know, and God had, basically that was my low moment. And I had decided from there on out, you know, that I wasn't going to, you know, let anybody put me in a situation where I was going to, you know, harm myself or anything. Like, I mean, had it gone through, I would not be here today. I would not be a mom. And even after that, I went through hell, but through the therapy, it helped me to deal with it. I'm still going through stuff. But I have just learned over the years how to deal with it. And now, because I'm with a lot of younger people that's going through, I can talk with them and I can relate more to them. And I have been that help that they needed. So when you talked about earlier how people like to help people, I mean, I can't even tell you how many students I've taught, not only just medical stuff, but we have to talk about life and talking about bettering themselves. And yes, that does help me. And I mean, even last year, my coworker died in a car accident where I had to take over teaching 70 students in the midst of trying to work on music, in the midst of being a single mom. So, you know, it has been a lot. And I had to, well, I thought I was better at one point, so I stopped taking the medicine, and that's the wrong thing to do. But I knew I had to go back. So now, you know, I'm back on my medicine and I've just been chill. So that's why I get on TikTok and because, you know, like right now I'm not doing the music and it's frustrating for me. So I had to make sure that I do other things to keep myself occupied, you know. And like now my daughter is 8 and she is really feeling herself and testing me. But I'm just learning how to deal. And like I tell my students all the time, it's all in how you handle things. Because they say all the time, "Is Hayward, you just see life is just," again, I got a new lease on life and I had to learn to let things go. I had to learn to forgive, you know, being molested as a young child. I had to learn how to forgive myself for things that I've done. And it's still a continuing process, but, you know, I think that's what my music helps me. And just, again, the fact that I can help other people who, again, they wouldn't believe that I had gone through the things that I've gone through, but I feel like I've gone through it so I can help them and let them see like, hey, you know, you got somebody who's been to the UK and done this and done that and doing this with music and doing all these things, but they're still human, you know. And I still have my moments, but I just have to continuously thank God every day, you know, when I wake up, that I'm able to, you know, be in my right frame of mind, you know, because it's hard. And just to stay focused and stay and keep my eyes on the prize, you know, and just try to be the best mom that I can, you know, to raise my daughter. And but yeah, so I mean, I had to push myself to get that help. And I mean, I'm telling you, it took me a minute, but last year when my friend died and I was going through, I knew, you know, and that was one promise that I had made to a doctor friend of mine, that, you know, if I was ever in a situation, you know, that I would go ahead and get the help. And you'd be surprised how there's a lot of people, because I grew up in that thing, oh, you know, just get over it. You know, we don't go to therapists and we don't do this. And I mean, as a young kid, I knew that, like, well, no, we just keep it moving. You know, they knew who the child molesters were in the family and still had them around, you know, during family functions. You know, they knew who was doing the bad things, and they would just, you know, they wouldn't talk about it, you know. And so I had to learn how to talk about it and learn how to help, you know. It allowed me to help other people along the way. So I feel like I'm needed in that regard.
I thank you for that. Openness and honesty, because that's what I was just talking about. We have the knowledge, we have the skills, we have the talent just to share what we have, because some of the people in their lowest times, when they share their stories, because they then have overcome and they're still journeying, but they are here. And it's those stories contribute. What we've heard tonight are contributions to why it's important that we are a part of the solution. If all of us are tired and all of us don't have no time, then how will it work?
Yeah, that kind of makes me think about back in 2002, I was diagnosed with a very rare muscle disease, and it should have killed me, but I'm still here. And at my lowest point, I was wanting to stop taking the medication because I felt like I was worthless. I couldn't walk. My son was like 4 years old, couldn't figure out why he couldn't jump and climb on me. my daughter was 10, and if it wasn't for her pushing me around the house in a wheelchair, I don't know how I would have made it. But then it just kind of dawned on me one day. I saw somebody pushing themselves down the street on a skateboard without any legs, and they seemed to be happy. And I said, what am I so upset about? I still have my legs. And from that point on, I started, I guess, this process of healing. And you were touching on a lot of things earlier, Juney, about, how if we don't address these things, it manifests itself physically. And I think that's very important, because when you have a disease, it means just that, not of ease. And what you do is you trick your, what they call autonomic nervous system into saying, okay, how am I going to deal with this? I'm going to make myself sick. And it goes back to that fight or flight, the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And when when you're like afraid that, you're going to be fighting for your life, what happens? You start breathing harder, your eyes get all big, and you're at this constant state of stress. And so if you constantly put your body through that, then, you will make yourself sick if you don't end up trying to take yourself out. And so it's like, that was kind of like my awakening right there. That was when I started finding my spirituality and all that. And, I had people praying for me all across the country, basically worldwide. And I started sharing that story once I got to the point where I felt comfortable. And if you look up my name on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of videos I did where I just talk specifically about that. And it's just like, my wife would tell me all the time that, you need to get back to working with the kids, because you've got a lot of knowledge to help them out of their situations. And you really made me think about using my platform more to actually help on a worldwide basis, not just locally.
Forgive me if you all already covered this, but African descendants of enslaved people carry the double burden of the lingering deleterious effects of institutional racism, PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder, on an institutional level, and then individually on an interpersonal level. What you all are so eloquently all sharing, and my sister just did a moment ago, and my sister before that. And so that's a double burden that nobody else has. And we have to, that's where Sister Ubuntu comes in. I am because we are, I can't exist apart from you, as opposed to the European, I think before I am, individuality. No, African wisdom and spirituality says I am because we are in the village. But always keep in mind, and this is where talented, credentialed white professionals sometimes can't be of help or can't be of sufficient help, because they only deal with the interpersonal without acknowledging or even being equipped to deal with the institutional, the effects of the ADOS that we deal with in the PTSD. So always keep that in mind. When we're dealing with this topic, there's that double burden that no one else carries.
And they call it the triple whammy. Yeah, especially for the men, they want to say that they're big, black, and mad.
Right.
And so the response to the men is, I spoke about it earlier, that they treat them like they're 10 times stronger and superhuman. So they need how much police van, how much police man, how much medication, and it's extra, because there's this training to look at us that we're so strong and powerful, and we need to be subdued. So you are correct. And we did raise about institutional racism and the impact of racism and discrimination and environmental racism, that the issues that we're touching are complex. They're different contributing factors. But I think as we slowly come to a close, that I like that we found our voice. That I do really hope that we will use our platforms to create these conversations, but we need to create them safely.
Yeah.
Because
Adassa came to something we did a while ago, and one of the issues is that there hasn't been safe spaces for us to begin to share in a non-clinical setting around our own who have had common experiences. And in that space, these are people who may not necessarily seek help from mainstream services, or who sought help but were failed because trauma wasn't defined by their experiences. It's very few and far between people who actually get the help they need. That's what we also need to remember, that there is some disparity around having appropriate and culturally ready services. And so that's why you need to have what we can offer alongside what else is on offer. Because we know also our communities, we know that we need to keep our dignity.
And we really do need programs that are preventative. I'm going to say that again, preventative, not programs dealing with the aftermath only. Yes, we need with everything, because we need to tackle everything at all different angles, but we really do need preventative. I have contacted programs in the past. I'll give you two examples. I contacted, I won't say the name though. I contacted a program. I said, I want some support for my son. I want some positive Black male figures to spend time with him, do some exciting things, do just be there like a really good mentor. No, I don't qualify. Why do I not qualify? Because your son hasn't committed no crime. They're not chewing at school. They're not there. I'm like, but I want to put him in these things to prevent him from going down that way. I'm trying to be proactive. I'm trying to be well ahead of the time, put things in place. He goes to this activity, he goes to that. I try my best with all different things and engage with the men of color so that he has a positive image of Black men. Is mass tutor, is as a Black man, is drum teacher as a Black man. Everything I've put him in, I've made sure that it's with our community so that he has a positive image wherever he goes of somebody that looks like him, a Black man, because that's what he's going to end up being, a Black man.
And I think that's the note. That is the note. You've hit the nail on the head. Speaking as a mother, what you have actively done, not just spoken about, but done. That's what we've achieved here tonight. Talking about what we've done, what we can do, and even how we could even work together. Because can you imagine is it Tony Robbins can have audience of thousands of people? Why can't we?
Yeah.
If we actually all came together, why can't we to address this global issue in our communities? There may be different contributing factors, but it boils down to the same thing. And that's how I like it. Not wait till crisis is what you're saying, because you have to remember, a lot of people, it's not happening until the crisis happens. And that's when it's too late. So they're not hearing prevention is better than cure.
Of course. And I learned that from my elder child when he was rebelling, going through a little turbulent stage. I got in contact with certain programs and I said, I want whatever it takes, whether it's something to help him, I want something to help him, I want something to help me, and I want something to help us as a family. And I'm not going to let go. I'm going to be like a Rockweiler until I get what I want. Yeah. They didn't like me. I was determined. I said I'm very specific about it. I want something tailored for him, tailored for me as a woman and as a mother, and tailored for us as a family in this home, so we can get it right from all angles. Eventually, I got what I wanted after a fight with it. And plus, you have to put your pride aside. I made a mistake of telling a few people what I was doing. Oh, why you're going on this and you're making people know your business, and what you need to be go on a program for parenting. Oh, you're not a good mother then. Oh, that is why I'm going on a parenting program, because I am a good mother. That is why. And I want to find out every little nook and cranny, what's going on with me, my son, my home, and get it right before it blows up. Because when it blows up, you're not going to be there in the home. Me and my son's going to be there in the home. And we're going to have to mop it up and pick up the pieces. So that's what I did. And put your pride to one side, because when I went on the program, the tutor, and I was very specific, I wanted people of color. I was very bossy, very specific. I wanted people of colored on these programs because I need to identify with these people. And the lady, I didn't get on with her, didn't even like her. But I put that to one side. That is a personality clash. Looking at the bigger picture, the program was great. We weren't great, but the program was great. So you've got to think bigger than that. You can't think, oh, I don't like this person, so I'm out of here. No, you got to fix yourself. You got to fix your home. That's your priority, not who you like.
We're not to fix, but we've also got to reflect from birth to older age. Dementia is happening to people younger and younger because they start to realize it's a lifestyle issue while we're having dementia younger and younger. And so all the topics that we have raised tonight, every one of us can respond to it from where you are. One of the mistakes we made, we all think that we need to be a professional or a mental health psychiatrist or a nurse to do anything. Actually, you are the mother, the father, the doctor, the nurse, the cook, the cleaner, the scientist in your very kitchen and home that is taking care of business right there. And it's the same that we have to adopt in our communities. And we're not waiting for crisis. We're going to intervene, but we have to give each other the permission, because it's just as you give your seat and let somebody sit down, ask your child to get up. We've got to get past, oh, make my child sit down. And they see the pregnant lady and the older lady rocking, and they were not giving up their seat because they've just forgotten the basic principles. So even if you can do a circle where people learn to be friendly again, a circle of how we love again, and just do little short things. How do we connect with people in our neighborhoods? How do we find out what is going on? How do we get them on our radio shows, on our TV shows, to talk about what they're doing and what can we do in that neighborhood? What is it that they need to scale it up, that we can start to experience it? Because all of it is small scale, because we're not able to have the resources all come together in the way that we need to have the type of impact we want. But we have the ability, we have the skills, knowledge, and experience. And that's really what I want to say. I can't thank you enough for tonight.
Thank you so
It's
much.
been so powerful. And I can imagine us having thousands of screens. Yes. And we should put that.
Thank you. We've got to do a part 2 on this, because we just touched on things. We're going to do a part 2 on this. We really have got to. there'll be maybe 1 or 2 people extra that I'll invite on the show as well, and we cover some other areas because we there's so much to cover. There's so much, but I think we've just flagged some of it up to get people thinking, and get people just go out there, just get what you want to get, and don't stop until you get it. Don't stop. Don't make people fog you up. Don't make friends or family tell you this. And I'll tell you some of the same people that were saying, well, why are you going on this thing and blah, blah, blah. A year or 2 later, guess what? They came back to me. Oh, what's that? What's the details of that program that you was on? They wanted the details for themselves. You see now? I gave it to them.
Yeah, I know this has been a very impactful program. I saw in the comments from NBS Boo that they want to share this. The link that you're watching this on right now, you can use that link and get to the recorded show once that's posted. And so everybody out there, please share, and share. Empress Jim is up here dropping some gems. We appreciate you, Sister Ma.
Yes.
And then we're gonna chime out. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Boozadelic, Juney Muhammad, DJ One, Gary Hines, and Mr. Gary, and the Queen of Boozadelic.
Yes.
I love it. What a powerful show.
We are going to stay optimistic with everything, because where there's life, there's hope.
Yes.
Can I say
never give up?
Can I say one thing, Odessa, before you?
Never.
Odessa, can I say one more thing before you do that? All you Christian people that think prayer is the only way that you can get past your issue, you need therapy too.
Say that again,
therapy.
DJ One. We missed that.
I said, all you Christian people that think that all you need to do is pray your way through, you need to go to therapy.
They do. We're all human.
That's right.
Yeah.
Religious or not, we're all God's children. We all need it.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Good night.
Blessings.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you for having us.
Oh, it's been a great show. It's been a great show. Live in hope. Stay optimistic. You can stay and listen to the rest of Sounds of Blackness with Optimistic. We're going to stay optimistic. We're going to have part 2. We're going to have fun. Let's end on a great, victorious note. Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Anybody that has any concerns, contact Magnet Radio. You can contact magnet-radio.com at outlook.com. You can go through to Juney Muhammad. I'll send the details on the replay. Juney Muhammad, and you can contact Juney Muhammad. You can
front room therapy at gmail.com.
Say that again, please, Juney.
Front room therapy at gmail.com.
Front room therapy at gmail.com.
Yeah.
And magnet-radio.com at hyphen.com. Not so simple.
And you can
just keep rewinding. Just if you've missed it, just keep replaying that little bit towards the end so you can hear it. No matter how high reality seems, just hold on to the dream. Although it's you know that you belong there. It's not that you keep the head Get things around you, trauma. No, you don't have
For now.
Keep pushing on.